Can't imagine the cold weather outside, right? Thank you all for being here. It shows your gratefulness, how joyful you are at the presence of God. No worries for those people joining today from home. Thank you for joining. Today, we celebrate the third Sunday of Advent, and it is called Gaudete Sunday, or the Sunday of Joy. And yes, it is the Sunday when the priest wears rose. It's not pink. Let us settle that once and for all. If you call it pink, you might see a slight holy twitch in the priest's left eye. But it is okay, because today is all about joy. The rose candle is lit, the rose vestments shine, and the whole church leans forward and whispers, "Rejoice." Christmas is almost here. Not quite here. Don't panic in this cold weather if you are not done shopping. But close enough that you can already smell the pine needles and hear faint angelic humming in the background. But dear friends, Christian joy is not the same as mere seasonal cheer. It is not the joy of "I got the last parking lot" or "the fruitcake finally ran out." No. Christian joy is deeper. It is the confidence that the Lord is near, moving quietly and powerfully in our daily lives, even when we don't see it right away. In the Gospel, we see John the Baptist is in prison. He's not having a great week, just like we are not having a great week. We are also just like imprisoned from this cold weather. But John the Baptist, from that dark, lonely cell, he sends his disciples to ask Jesus, "Are you the one who is to come?" Or in other words, he's asking, "Are you the Messiah, or are we still waiting?" And how does Jesus respond? Not with a lecture. Jesus says, not with a philosophical debate. Jesus simply says, "Go and tell John what you see. The blind sees, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news preached to them." In other words, Jesus is telling, yes, John, the world is already changing. Hope is already happening. Joy is already breaking in. Dear friends, in our first reading from Isaiah reminds us of God's promise. The desert, or no, not the desert, that may be from Thanksgiving, you may be thinking about desert. The desert will bloom. That is a poetic way of saying when God steps in, even your driest, dustiest, most exhausted places suddenly springs to life. Prophet Isaiah says, "Weak hearts will be strengthened, frightened hearts will be made brave, the blind will see, the lame will leap like a deer." As dear friends, both Prophet Isaiah and Jesus preach the same message. Where God is, life blooms. Where God is, hope grows. Where God is, joy breaks through, even in the deserts. Now, this last week, our parish experienced a little Advent miracle of its own.
On Thursday, many of you came for a reconciliation service. Even our little ones made their first reconciliation. And let us be honest, before confession, some of us walking looking like we are entering an IRS audit. But afterward, you come out looking 5 pounds lighter. Not physically, that would be another miracle, but spiritually lighter, freer, peaceful. Dear friends, that moment of grace, and that is Advent joy. The joy of being forgiven. The joy of starting again, and the joy of knowing that God has touched you and said, "You are mine, come home." You know, in the second reading, St. James gives us a gentle Advent push. Be patient. Strengthen your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Dear friends, let us strengthen our hearts. Why? Because Christian joy is not passive. Our joy is not just sitting around with a cup of cocoa singing Silent Night, but our joy moves us. Our Christian joy sends us. Our Christian joy gives us the courage to become witnesses. When Jesus fills our hearts with His joy, we start preparing His way just like John the Baptist. So, how do we prepare the way of the Lord? That's what we reflect today. We do it in very simple, very real, very human ways. We prepare the way for the Lord by forgiving others as generously as God forgives us. We prepare the way for the Lord by speaking gently in a world that sometimes forgets what gentleness sounds like. We prepare the way for the Lord by bringing peace into tense situations, especially family gatherings, the ones. And we prepare the way for the Lord by offering patience where everyone else is rushing. We prepare the Lord by offering hope where others have stopped believing. We prepare the way for the Lord by seeing, by noticing, and by loving the lonely, the sick, and the forgotten. And we prepare the way for the Lord by carrying our renewed joy into our homes, into our workplaces and communities. Because, dear friends, joy is not meant to be hoarded. A forgiven heart becomes a forgiving heart. A healed heart becomes a healing heart. A joyful Christian becomes a walking billboard for hope. Today, Jesus whispers to each of us, look around. The signs of my presence are everywhere. Rejoice, for I am near. Let that joy prepare you, not only for December 25th, but for every moment of our life when Christ comes again into your actions, your kindness, your relationships, your patience, and your compassion. Dear friends, may this Gaudete Sunday fill your hearts with the joy that only Jesus can give, a joy strong enough to lift you, light enough to free you, and deep enough to overflow into the world around you. And may each of us become a path, a joyful, hope-filled path where Christ can walk into the world. Amen.